So how you doing, JJ?
Pretty well, sir. You?
I'm doing well. Now that I'm sitting beside
Excellent.
Hollywood's biggest visionary. Gotta start with the compliment.
Yeah.
So I was reading an interview with Alex, who was saying that the dilemma for the sequel was whether to pit the crew against another villain or to have an exploration sci-fi plot where the unknown in nature itself is somehow an adversary. I know you're not credited as a writer, but I'm sure you're involved in the writing process. So how come go with a villain that's might not be as villainous as maybe we think he is?
You know, I think that the key for us was that we come up with a story that intrigued us and got us excited, and we didn't really look at it from the outside in, thinking, well, who should the villain be and how should it work? You know, this was really a question of, you know, the characters that we came to love, what are they going to go through and what's the best way to test them? And as a byproduct of going through that development process of the story, there's a villain in the movie who I think is, if villains define the heroes, I think we have a pretty significant heroic bunch, because the villain is, I think, a terrific addition to the world.
And how come you chose to go that way instead of going, I mean, everyone online is saying, is it going to be Khan? Is it going to be taking a different direction?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, some of the original films did have, you know, villains like this, and I think that the more mysterious exploratory thing, as in the Star Trek the motion picture, you know, you can get into, you know, the advantages and disadvantages of sort of any kind of storytelling. But the fact is that we didn't make this movie for fans of Star Trek. We made this movie for movie fans. If you happen to be a Star Trek fan, I think you'll be really happy, because there's a lot of stuff in there that's definitely for you. And certainly Bob Orsi and Damon, who are massive Star Trek fans, made sure that the fans of Star Trek are being not only, you know, appreciated but rewarded for their being fans. But you know, what I love about this movie is that you've got characters that you love in insane, extraordinary circumstances, and I think that Benedict is a wonderful foil for them.
One of those insane, extraordinary circumstances we see right in the beginning that I guess most people see this weekend with The Hobbit is them on a new world. So as a director, you get to create not only new worlds, but the future of maybe what our planet will look like. So what's more exciting for you?
Well, you know, it was great to get to do both. I mean, this movie takes place far more on Earth than the first film did, and we got to look at not just, you know, London, but also San Francisco as future cities, and that was incredibly cool and still remains incredibly cool. I mean, we're still working on the film. So part of the fun was being able to say, you know, extrapolating, you know, where we are now and where we're going to where we will be, and visually realize that. And so that's been insanely fun, and there are just, you know, endless details and things that people will never see, I think, in the first viewing, that kind of add to the reality and the thought and the fun of it, and it makes me even more grateful for our, you know, designers and production designer and visual effects people, and that's really cool. The New Worlds aspect is also really exciting, because especially what you see in the beginning of the film, it's like a real sort of primitive species, and so I wanted to make sure that you saw before the end of that sequence not just the sort of the natives who at the beginning are chasing some characters, but you also want to see, as you do, you know, an elder, you want to see a baby, you want to see, you know, some animal life on the planet. Like, I wanted you to get a sense that by the time you left that place, you had seen some really small details and some really epic, you know, landscapes. And I think that the fun of that very, you know, fairly short sequence on that red planet is you just get a taste of, like, kind of what's out there in the world. And I loved being able to sort of play with scale in that sequence. It was a lot of fun.
We do something called 5 questions. 5 quick questions, 1-word answers. Writing or directing?
Directing.
Lennon or McCartney?
McCartney.
Hitchcock or Kubrick?
Hitchcock.
Your biggest influence as a director?
Spielberg.
And in 1 word, Star Trek?
Epic.